Welcome to the Travel Bug Girls podcast, the show where we dive into the world of travel, exploring everything from expert tips and insider secrets to unforgettable destinations and the latest trends. Whether you're a seasoned globetrotter or planning your very first adventure, we've got you covered with the advice and inspiration you need to make your travels truly unforgettable. So sit back, relax, and let's take your travel planning to the next level. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Travel Bug Girls podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about exploring ecotourism. So this might be something you haven't really thought of before, but I think it's a really neat and unique aspect to travel that is probably becoming more and more popular in our world right now. So ecotourism is responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment and sustains the well-being of the local people and involves interpretation and education. So education is a big part of it. And like I said, it is growing in popularity. And I think making sure that we have kind of the balance between the tourism and seeing the effect, that's going to be some of the stuff that we talk about today. So interesting fact about ecotourism, it contributes over $600 billion to the global economy annually, while also supporting conservation efforts and supporting local communities. It is a big deal, and that's part of why we're going to talk about it today. Our travel agent, Tina, is going to kind of take the lead on this discussion. So, Tina, I'm going to let you go ahead and tell us a little bit about ecotourism.
Okay, so like I had mentioned in past podcasts, I'm a yoga instructor as well. And so as a yoga instructor, I like to create experiences both on the mat and off the mat and in my travel planning to create these experiences that make people feel more peaceful and powerful. And that is one way to feel good about when you're traveling. You want to be mindful of what you're doing when you are visiting another person's home, home country or home city or whatever it is. They say that travel really broadens the mind, and I really believe that. So I like to think that our travel could broaden our horizons and help us protect our planet. And so this is really where ecotourism kind of comes in. You had mentioned that, some of the different things that ecotourism can do benefiting the economy. It also can help protect endangered species. When you are traveling in this way, you could be supporting conservation efforts around the world. And I'm going to pronounce this wrong. I had it before I got on here, but I'm not sure. Masai Mara area in Kenya. So you may do they're really into safaris and things like that. And their efforts go into anti-poaching, into preservation, research and funding, job creation, cultural preservation, and community development. So all of the things that you want to think about in your own home, in your own place, you want to keep it. Of course, you're probably not worried about anti-poaching in here in Wichita Falls, but for places we want to keep those species that we love, our elephants and different things, and we want to keep them so for the future generations that they're still around. I think maybe we can talk a little bit about why ecotourism matters and what we can do to bring this into our travel.
I think one reason why ecotourism has kind of become more popular is actually partly because of COVID. I think COVID helped us realize how the whole global community fits together and really open our eyes on those connections and kind of see how our actions affect others, even in other parts of the world. And so I think being more conscious of that as we're traveling is kind of a outpouring from COVID and just...
I agree. There was a great documentary that showed how different areas, I think it was narrated by Attenborough, I think it was on Netflix, but how things just changed and how, nature really, it keeps going, nature finds a way, like Jurassic Park. So, we can think of ecotourism as travel with the conscious, exploring these natural areas and minimizing our own impact for the local communities.
What do y'all see as the benefits of ecotourism? Why should people be worried about ecotourism?
One of the things that, there's a lot of talk about conservation, and that's really where ecotourism started, was trying to protect animals and ecosystems that were really endangered by tourism. And the progress we've made in those areas has been amazing because of people building intentionally some travel opportunities for people who wanted to be a part of good happening in those communities. But the other thing that we see happening, which has really broadened the topic of ecotourism, is the economic impact for small and sometimes very isolated communities, places that are really off the beaten path. And what I'm seeing in the trends of the groups I'm working with, this kind of stuff really started in areas like South America, Central America, Africa. But even in Europe, we're seeing a greater growth in this because of the desire for people to have a deeper experience, a more interactive and educational experience in their travel, and wanting to give back to smaller communities. And so we're able to give them those opportunities even in Europe, in places that are maybe unexpected locations for vacations, but life-changing experiences.
I think even here in the United States, I think Cassie had a story about how, in her community it's helping.
Absolutely. I'll tell you the first thing, in a way more country way than Heather said it. Ecotourism helps. When I was growing up, we called it being poor. But if you pack a lunch and you go to a park and you do, hiking, biking, those are all low cost things. But it can still very much be some of the most memorable parts of your vacation. Here in the southern part of West Virginia where I live, we have what's called the Hatfield-McCoy Trail System. And I know nobody thinks of ATVs, UTVs as environmentally friendly, but here in West Virginia for years, areas have really been struggling. McDowell, Mercer. I was a home health nurse for a great many years in these very poor areas. And the problem not only is that coal is on the decline, but there's nothing to replace that for the people that still live here. And the culture of the area is to take care of your family. So very much of our businesses are small businesses, family-owned businesses, people that's lived here their whole lives, their grandparents has lived here their whole lives, and this is home. So when people come in to ride these trails, they're very much giving back to the community because there isn't Starbucks here. There isn't McDonald's. I do think some of them have a McDonald's, but most things are family owned and operated, and it really just directly impacts the people living in the communities. And these people that are out on these trails, they're having to, carry food and water and things of that nature, and they're not allowed, they can't hunt and things and harvest animals from those areas. So it is very much a conservation type, a different type, but it's very much a conservation of this area and the way that we live.
That's great.
I think it kind of at the core of this is kind of the same, is at the core of what I love about travel. It's a reminder that we are all sharing this earth together. And so when you come into that place where you know that you are sharing this earth together, you're going to be more understanding of your fellow human being. So, I sometimes say I'm teaching yoga to kind of, if somebody's doing yoga, they're not doing anything bad in the world, at that moment. And so when you're doing something with a mindfulness type of trip, you are doing something that is raising the energy of the whole world. That's all. You're just saving the world. That's all. That's all.
I love that. I love that part of ecotourism is education. So you're not just going in somewhere, you're getting something back. It's a give and take. And I think learning, like you said, like learning about different cultures in a authentic way just really opens up your eyes and brings kind of a more of an awareness to the world. Anytime you can step into someone else's shoes and learn about their experience, it really just kind of opens up your perspective to the world. And I think the education part too is a great part of ecotourism.
It definitely creates that cultural exchange. Absolutely.
Yeah. Heather, you had mentioned about some ecotourism in Italy. Can you kind of expound a little bit?
We're seeing a growing trend and really this is not super new, but I do feel like I'm meeting more and more clients who don't know about it. So it's a growing understanding that it exists, that it's an offering in the US especially. But in Italy, there are a special designation for accommodations that are on farms, active working farms or vineyards, olive groves. They're called agriturismos. So if you're planning a trip to Italy and you want to have one of these more interactive experiences and you want to get out of the big city, this is a great opportunity to learn more about the culture of the Italian countryside and the families that are living there, what it takes to grow some of the best olive oil in the world, and wine. I mean, it's just an incredible experience. I took my grandmother and my mother and my aunt last year to Italy, and we had an opportunity to stay in one up in the region of Chianti, and we were surrounded by the hills and hills of olive groves and vineyards. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience. It was also extremely peaceful, because you're out of the city, you're out in the countryside, and what looks like a painting. I mean, you literally step out on your porch and it looks like a painting. And it was an active working farm. And then on the weekends, they have a chef that comes in and does an entire dinner with many, many courses. I think there were 10 courses, and every course was paired with a local wine. And it was just an incredible experience, like something we'll be talking about for generations. Like, I just feel
sounds like something out of a movie.
I want everyone to have that experience, and that is the kind of thing that you can find in many countries in Europe. When I take people out of Paris, I want to take them into the countryside and do the same thing. If you're touring the Champagne vineyards, for example, those are actually, the reality is these are small family-owned farms, generationally farming this one product to a point of expertise, right, that the entire world acknowledges. And so the history that's in a place like that is incredible. And the first thing they're going to do, if you're going to one of these maison de champagne, as they call it, a house of champagne, it's literally going to be somebody's house next door to a vineyard. And then maybe they have, if they've really succeeded really well, then they might have a really nice showroom. But then they're going to walk you through the vineyard, maybe. They're going to walk you through the process of making the wine. They might tell you their family history, because these wines are often known by the family name, because it's passed down through generations. So there's just a lot of education, like you said, but culture and education are all wrapped up in it. And then you're putting money into these literal families' hands so that they can continue. And it's just it's a wonderful way to see a country. So those are the kinds of things that we would love to help you see more of. If you're listening and you'd like to know more about that, let us know, because it's a different kind of experience than staying in a big city hotel, that may be owned by a huge corporation that's based in, the US or, some other country, but you're staying in Italy in a big hotel in the city. That's not the same kind of experience as being out in the countryside and meeting the real people.
Yeah. But even if you are having those kind of experiences, if maybe that is not on that's not the whole purpose for your trip. Maybe, if you are going with some people who this is not a concern of them, there are still things that the bigger corporations that are doing. I think all these little things can add up. Like I mentioned about the Virgin Voyages cruise line. They really are worried about different things that they can do to conserve, and you're still going to have the same kind of party atmosphere as you would. You're just not going to have single-use plastics, and they're going to be doing things underneath the surface. So I think remembering about the things that are becoming the new norm, just making sure that the companies that you are working with are legitimately trying to make an effort to be a little bit more green.
I think that's a great point. Like, even if your trip isn't necessarily eco-tourist focused, you can still choose to partner with vendors that are making effort to be more environmentally conscious or be more locally focused as far as the places that they go into. Cassie, you mentioned about Disney, like some of the stuff. Do you want to go ahead and talk about that?
Disney, I know everybody doesn't think environmentally conscious Disney, but if you really want to see firsthand how they put things to support ecotourism, Animal Kingdom is one of it was revolutionary when it was first constructed, but just in my experience, my children have done the little activities all around Animal Kingdom. Every activity that they have is aimed to reduce, reuse, recycle, make kids environmentally conscious. It's not saying be this way or think this way. It's, can you reuse, repurpose things? Disney also, just right off the top of my head, the Starbucks in the Animal Kingdom has a cotton top, I believe it's a flat white or something like that, all the proceeds go to the cotton top tamarin. So they have cotton top tamarins there, and they're supporting cotton top tamarins in the wild. And and you can also donate to their conservation fund. They have helped farmers in Africa use bees to help keep elephants out of their farms. There's some things they've done with goats and different things like that to help, sustain and feed people in the area to keep so much of the poaching to a minimum. Different things like that. Epcot is fantastic with hydroponics, and Disney uses a lot of local farmers for their food. They grow a lot. They have solar farms. So if you're looking for ecotourism, they can find you ecotourism.
That's awesome. I never would have, like you said, I wouldn't have thought of Disney as being, one of those names. So with everything else, when you're going into a small local community, or there is a balance, and there are, I guess, risks. So let's talk about, what are some of the challenges that we see with ecotourism?
So I think just like any place, it can become a over tourism. You have to be, notice the places that people are always having to see. And I think that a lot of these places are starting to put maybe different taxes involved or have limits, so that they want people to come there and support them. But when there's too many people coming there, and they may not be treating their places with the most respect, that opportunity is going to go away a little bit more. So, one thing that you might want to do is maybe find those places that are net off the grid, sometimes they're just as beautiful. And it's not, sometimes you're just checking things off a list to say you've been there. Do you really want to experience something that way just to check it off a list? So that's one. Another one is greenwashing. If people, if companies are saying that they're working for sustainability, might want to do a little bit more research, make sure that they have some kind of certification, maybe Earth Check or Green Key, something like that, that somebody else is kind of saying, yes, they are, they're not just slapping some green on there and saying, of course, being a yoga teacher, I'm saying find a balance. We want to encourage responsible tourism, but we just need to make sure that the tourism doesn't overburden these environments and protect the local communities. And, we've kind of talked about that already. Just make sure you're respecting the area you're going to. Being mindful of what what you're doing, where you're going, and how it's going to impact just being a good neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was thinking about this as you were talking, like I think the rise of like Instagram worthy photos,
Yes.
getting that Instagram worthy photo, and with the internet, kind of these places that used to be like small little local hidden places are now out there for the whole world to see. And it's kind of like you said, if there's not some sort of controlled management of some of those places, they can get overrun, and then the beauty is destroyed.
That's right.
And that's not what we want. So it is definitely a balance. And I think if you go into it, like you were saying, with the mindfulness, having that mindset of being conscious of what you're doing and how it affects, and learning, taking and giving as far as the learning education process, I think that can give you not just a better experience with ecotourism, but leave these things intact for the next generation, because that's what we want. Like we want everybody to be able to come through and experience the beauty of nature. And I know there's always going to be some natural things that happen where you're going to lose maybe this beautiful rock figure or whatever it might be, but that's part of nature. We don't want that to be a man caused thing where now future generations will never ever be able to experience something because we've run it over with for Instagram.
Like what we've seen in places like Yosemite and Yellowstone. Thank you, Cassie. Yes, where we see tourists just actively destroying things by stepping off trails, putting things into pools of water that are very delicate ecosystems and things. The government has done a lot to try to minimize the damage that humans are doing in those areas. We want everyone to have the freedom to see it, but they're going to have to limit more and more, I think, because we're seeing so much destruction happen by tourists. And now we're hearing more places that are requiring permits for hiking certain trails to reduce overcrowding and trash pollution. I mean, the trash that is left behind in some of these places that were before pristine natural resources, right? So that's something I think we're going to see more of across the globe. Government stepping in and saying, okay, that's too much. You're going too far. And the best way to avoid that is for us to be more mindful, like Tina said, from the beginning in how we're treating things.
Just to kind of on the be a good human, be a good neighbor. The trash, Heather, was also what I wanted to talk about. For the first time I've been going to Tennessee since I was probably 13 years old. And we went and it was the first time I had seen trash along the side of the road ever, I think. And we went to Los Angeles back in September, and I couldn't believe how beautiful California was everywhere except Los Angeles because of the trash. And I think we need to instill in our children, if you see something and it bothers you, change it. Don't think that, oh, it's okay for me to throw down trash because it's me and I'm the most important. If that bothers you and you didn't throw it down, pick it up. And especially places that have animals, and people want to talk about, hurting animals, but you don't care to throw a can down or a balloon or something, a bag that they'll eat or something like that. I just think the trash is becoming an issue, and it needs addressed.
Along with what both of y'all have said, like our role as a travel agent in this is to bring awareness when we're booking these trips to these places that might be more vulnerable areas, either environmentally, culturally, to kind of have those conversations with our clients as we're booking these trips. Hey, I want to help you go there, but I also want to help you do this in a responsible way so that we can keep this community, this environment, this animal, whatever, this habitat intact for, future travelers, future visitors. I think that just having that conversation right off the bat, as far as our role, can go a long way with just bringing awareness. Because I think a lot of people maybe just don't just don't have awareness. So, if we can bring awareness. So what are some, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but what are some ecotourism experiences that you guys have encountered, been on, or that you know about that we can share with our listeners?
In the tour industry, I would say there's a growing trend of this. And so there's a lot of companies that we work with that offer specific tours to see different things, to experience different things in this industry. So, South America, going up into Ecuador, the jungles, Central America, we're going to see a lot of that kind of thing. Panama is a good example. Costa Rica is a growing trend, I think. They've done a lot of development in that area, which is kind of scary when we talk about it from an ecotourism standpoint, to see so many more resorts being developed in that area. But there's so much beauty in that region to be shared. So I think that's one I think of. And then, of course, the opportunities to experience really small town farming communities in Europe are growing, but you have to be willing to get off the beaten path and not spend all your time in the big cities like Paris and Rome. So maybe trips that are more customized, where you might start in a city destination like that, but then go out into the countryside using different connections with those smaller resources. It's really going to be something I think we see more and more of.
And I think there's also even a trend for people who, how do I put this? Maybe they are concerned about the environment, but they are used to more luxury travel. So there's more of a eco luxury travel that's on the rise. So, the supplier is going to have things that are created in a environmentally and culturally friendly way, and you are still going to have a setup that is going to make you feel like you are in a 4 or 5 star resort experience. So that's that, and that's great, because the more money we can bring into things like this, it helps.
One that came to my mind when we started talking about this was the Celebrity Cruise Line. They have 3 ships that cruise to the Galapagos Islands, and it's very ecotourism focused. So it's very educational focused. They have you have the opportunity for 2 excursions per day, and they travel to different parts of the island. There's also like a conservationist that will come onto the ship and kind of talk to you about what's there, what you're seeing. They'll talk to you about the wildlife that's there while you're on the island. So everything is very like eco-friendly and eco-conscious. And that, I think that's really, really cool, because, Galapagos is very unique as far as their wildlife there.
Well, I know that there's National Geographic has their own, because I know I did a training on it and I became certified in it. So they're going to do things that are going to teach you a great amount and be sustainable and everything.
I think too, we're seeing more. I know a lot of the cruise lines will stop at these different, often smaller island destinations, and it's very touristy, kind of right off the boat or whatever. But I think we are seeing a trend in more cruise lines trying to partner with more local vendors to give a more authentic experience and less like touristy. And I also think that is somewhere where we can come in, where we can help our clients kind of get past that point of the tourist areas and kind of get into the more local communities and the more local vendors, where we're actually helping our clients contribute to the local environment and local community there, and not just a tourist trap.
That's true. And in both cruising and resorts in, let's say, the Caribbean, for example, we're seeing more opportunities for tours that they can add on, instead of going to the big tourist destination in your port stop, you can go to a conservation effort, go Go see what the local scientists are working on and the animals that they're working to preserve there and protect. And often there's even some really neat hands-on experiences in those situations. So that's something to look into too when you have options to do tours or activities in that region, to definitely look into some of these ecotourist options that are available locally.
Also, kind of to go with what Heather, it's not cruise line related, but if you have children, any national park in the United States has a junior ranger program. And it's kind of like you have to ask. So you go up and all of their activities, they give them a couple things to do generally, and my boys love to do it everywhere we go. And its main focus is education and conservation of whatever area you were in. We did the Outer Banks recently, and it was all about, education on the beach, conservation, that kind of thing. We did Gettysburg. It was a lot on conservation of, the battlefields and things of that nature. That's a great free resource to tack in, say, if you were doing a lot of hiking, biking, things like that you could add into your day that doesn't cost anything.
Awesome. Well, we're getting about to the end of our time. Tina, did you have anything else that you wanted to share with us about ecotourism?
I think just putting it out there as a challenge to everybody to make this idea part of your travel experience and planning, and just use it as another way to be more mindful in your whole life.
All right. With that in mind, thank you all for being with us today. I appreciate everybody's input. Final question for the end of our episode. What destination is on your mind this week? Tina.
Lake Austin Spa Resort.
Okay. Cassie?
I think I'm going to go with Yellowstone this time.
All right. Heather?
San Gimignano, Italy.
Ooh. All right. Mine is Arizona. Okay.
All right.
So thank you again all for being here. Now that you guys have heard where our minds are this week, we'd like to know where your mind is traveling today after that conversation. So share your answer with us on Facebook under this week's podcast question at facebook.com/travelbuggirls. You can find us on your favorite social media by using @travelbuggirls. Join our Facebook VIP group where we share special deals and travel insider tips. You'll find us in our Facebook groups under TBG Travel Bugs or at facebook.com/groups/TBG Travel Bugs. Thank y'all for being with us today. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Travel Bug Girls podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It really helps the show grow and allows us to bring you more amazing content. We'd love to connect with you on social media. Find us online at travelbuggirls.com. Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and safe travels.